Welcome to our first chapter. We are looking at outcomes-based education and training. Before we start, let's just go on to understand the background of education in South Africa. For those of you that are aware of history, you know the kind of different systems that existed in South Africa before independence. Now, what is happening is that the kind of differences that were there had an impact on the education system as well as opportunities for the people in South Africa. What happened was, because of that era, there were disadvantaged communities and some communities that were well equipped with education and training. Hence, when we came to 1994, it became a daring and a difficult issue to try and make sure that everybody was well accommodated. Because what would happen was that the previously disadvantaged people could not have an opportunity for education. Some of them were skilled and highly skilled, but they couldn't be rewarded at work because of lack of documents or illiteracy. You could find that somebody could be illiterate, but they understood and they knew what they had to do. However, they did not have qualifications to show for it. And hence, prior to 1994, it was easy for someone to say, you know what, I'm not paying you the salary because you do not have 1, 2, 3. Now, after 1994, it became important to try and flatten the ground so that it's leveled and everybody has an equal opportunity, and we have a way of making sure that everybody is recognized for what they know. And hence the national qualification framework was put together to make sure that whoever came from whatever country they were, when they come back to South Africa, they would say, okay, this is how my qualifications are compared with other people. So the first NQF levels that we had 8 levels, which went up to, you could think of whatever level that you can think of. They would always have a way of categorizing them. So after 2018, it should be 2018, our NQF level was then changed to 10 levels, which is what we currently use right now. So everybody is catered for within those levels. And what they wanted to do was to make sure that whether you black, you white, you rich, you whatever, you can all be graded in a uniform and systematic way to say, if you do have your metric, this is the level that we are putting you at. If you have your doctorate, this is your level. So it was not going to be an issue of saying, we can pay so and so because of anything other than the experience and may possibly the qualification that they have. So the NQF, it really does help us to look at that. So after this, I would love you to go and look at your qualification and say, and try and find out where you are within the national qualifications framework. And then you can actually check again and say, what else can I do? Where do I go from there? What is there for me? Now, the NQF is governed by certain principles. These principles, there's quite a lot. Please check through your notes. There's quite a lot of principles. I just want to discuss a few of them here. The NQF says that the qualification that you get should be credible. When something is credible, it means you can take it anywhere that you want in the world and they'll be able to say, yes, indeed, you have studied in South Africa under this institute and this is credible. You can actually, we can use it, we can recognize it. And again, you are competent in what you're saying you can do. The NQF principles among them says the qualifications or how we get them must be flexible. So regardless of whether you go to a university or you go to a technikon or you get your education informally, you copy from somebody else, or you work under someone, what matters is the skill that you eventually have to have, which it makes it flexible. I can then go to an institute and say, I want to be assessed in this skill. I'm a very good painter. Can you please assist me to paint, even though I never had that, opportunity to prove that I am a painter. So in this instance, you see in your notes, there is what we call recognition of prior learning. This, if I can think of an example of my uncle Peter. My uncle Peter has been a painter all his life. Unfortunately, he does not have any papers to show that he is a qualified painter, but he is competent. He knows how to paint. He's good. He knows different types of paint. You can ask him anything about paints, he will do it for you, but he does not have that paper. So what happens is that in his case, we as assessors need to look at how can we best assist him. And we are asked, and we are mandated actually, to say, assist these people through what we call a RPL, recognition of prior learning, so that Peter can come to us and we say, let's sit down, let's look at the qualification or unit standard that you have. What is it that you have that will show us that indeed you can do what you do? So Peter will go back, get his testimonials, get his other documents, show the skill. Where he is lacking, we take him through again and say, can you do 1, 2, 3 so that we can solidify your competence? So that's the NQF principles that allow us to do that. So that was flexibility. Now, our qualifications or whatever we study needs to be portable, meaning when I've studied, if I can give an example of this assessor course, we will do the assessor course. It belongs under a full qualification of occupational directed education and training, 50334. So if I do finish this course, I take my 25 credits. I do not have to go back and do the very same again in that qualification. They would recognize that I have got it already. So in other words, it's portable. So the principles of the NQF, some says it must be portable. So I carry what I've already have and take it to another qualification. It's very important for you guys to really remember that as we assessors, as we assess people, we check through what they have and say, do they have it? How can they take it to another qualification? That is the job of an assessor. In this chapter, we also would look at evidence. We cannot do anything without evidence. Evidence is what makes everything possible. When we use evidence, there is 3 types of evidence. The first one being historical evidence. The historical evidence are things that you can refer to and say, I have once attended this course, or I was working at this job and I have got a testimonial like our Uncle Peter. You can come and say, there is my work documents. I used to work in this company for so many years as a painter. These were my tasks. So you can take that historical evidence. It was done actually to help, disadvantaged people that could not prove themselves then. Then we also have what you call direct evidence. I love that. The direct evidence is what I would have seen with my eye. Direct, if you can remember, direct. I saw that with my eye. So it is direct because I saw it. And then indirect evidence is the evidence that is collected, but I'm depending on someone else to assess the person. Say, for instance, as a supervisor of my candidate at work, I've given them maybe work application, task to do at work, and I'm going to depend on that supervisor to say, was that person competent or not yet competent? And this is when indirect evidence comes. I did not see that with my eye. I saw what we can say is direct evidence. I saw that. Indirect, somebody else has done it for me. So those are the kind of evidence that we are always referring to during the course. Your historical, your indirect, and then the direct evidence. Now, outcomes-based assessments are done by us as assessors. We do these assessments and they must be structured. So when you do these assessments, these are structured processes that we use to gather information, and then we make judgment of that evidence that they've given us, and then we can then say a learner is competent or not yet competent. And when we make that judgment, we use a criteria. If later on you go to your unit standard, you'll note that your unit standard is what we call specific outcomes and assessment criteria. So that assessment criteria would help us to say, is this person competent or not? It actually builds to the competence that we'll want to have at the end of the day. Before we even break off now, let's look at the role of an assessor. What does an assessor do? You are in this, but what is it that you are expected to do? An assessor's role is very, very simple. You use existing assessment tools that have been given to you. Your duty is to make sure that you go out there, conduct pre-assessment meetings, you plan your assessment well, you plan everything that entails assessment, which you're going to, unpack at a later stage. So that would be the role of an assessor. An assessor makes sure that they are, if I could put it generally, they actually carry the quality that we talk about. When you talk about quality in education and training, they are the custodians of quality. They are helping the learners to do that. There will be a lot of other roles that they do, but an assessor needs to assess within their areas of expertise. They need to assess according to where they are registered. So take through that and take your notes in preparation of the next session.